right, welcome everybody to this very special edition of Rush Roundtable. This is part two of two-part post or whatever, yeah, honoring Neil on the fourth anniversary of his passing. The first part had to do with lyrics, and now we are going to talk about drums. We're going to talk about drum fills, and if we want to mention drum grooves or whatever that Neil played that either we love or inspired us, and we'll do that too. So I don't want to take any more time chatting, but we do have two people who are brand new to Roundtable. This is their first time on, and I would like them to introduce themselves. So Tim, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself first?
Sure. All right. So I am Tim Alexander, and I am a drummer. I do that professionally. Do that professionally in the band Primus, and heavily influenced by Neil. As a kid, when I first discovered him, I think my moment was when I first heard Spirit of Radio. I was walking around with one of those big portable ghetto blasters,
Yeah.
and I just the music just made me feel good, during that time of my life. So I always had music going, and when I heard that come on the radio, uh, that was it. That was it. I was like, what is happening here? This is amazing. And then I had friends that I was kind of playing music with, and they were familiar with older Rush albums. So that began the journey. I was just in album to album. So what I did as my education, I didn't realize that you could go tell somebody or ask somebody to teach you how to play drums.
Oh.
It just never occurred to me. And it's the weirdest thing. I just never thought that, oh yeah, I could learn. So um, what I was doing is I would start. I think I probably started with, it might have been Signals, could have been the first one. Then I went back, and then I went back to the beginning, and I would learn every single note of every single album, and I would air drum it. I kind of had a real shambles of a drum set that had little sounds and bigger tom sounds, and I had like one trashy cymbal that's, if you can see, that sat at an angle off to the side of my kit because that was the only stand I had. I mean, it was crazy. But I would look at the album covers, and I would try to figure out what sound matched what possibly his hands were doing. So I was trying to put together, what is that hand doing? What's on that side of the kit? And oh, he's doing that. Oh, that sounds about right. And the other cool thing was I would slow the vinyl down. I had vinyl. That was the only way back. This
Yeah.
is in late 70s. But I would slow it down and try to figure out the stuff that was just like, I cannot understand what he's doing. And that brings me to the point. So for the last 2 years, I've been doing Farewell to Kings. So Primus went out and we played the whole album from front to back. And this is an interesting story too. We got to do it in Toronto with Geddy and Alex there watching. A little nerve-wracking.
My brother was at that show. Actually, he sent
no
me
way
pictures. Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Awesome.
So, but yeah, I've been doing that for the last 2 years, and then having to relearn this stuff was completely like it was enlightening because me being 40 years later with all that knowledge that I had of Rush and then kind of drifting away from it for a long time. As I grew up, I started getting exposed to other music, and I was in my first band, professional band, where we played a lot of reggae, ska, and world
Oh,
beat. This is in the 80s. So world beat music was heavily influencing pop music. And then, you get the albums like what Peter Gabriel did with So, he's got what is it, a West African drumming and African drums mixed with, electric. And so a lot of the music at that time was being influenced a lot by your European or what do you call it? Yeah, African rhythms and all kinds of world rhythms. That was his label started, Real World started at that time.
mhm.
And that exposed everyone to all kinds of really killer stuff. So, and that I noticed in some of Neil's playing too, of bringing in, when he brought in his electronics, he brought in, sounds of world rhythms. And so, yeah, so, gosh, I got probably off track, but, um, anyways, yeah, heavily influenced by Neil. So that's who
Cool.
I am right now. That's who I am.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Tim.
Great. Yeah, thanks,
Sorry.
Tim. All right.
Yeah, sure.
No, it's okay. Mike, this is the first time you've been on a round table as well, I believe. Why don't
Yes, it
you?
is, and thank you so much for
Yeah.
asking me to be on. This is so cool, you guys.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
Yeah,
we,
this is
thanks for
amazing.
coming, man.
of
So, Mike,
course.
why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get started on all our drum fill stuff.
Yeah, so I'm Mike Hetzel. I'm the drummer for Why Not? And yeah, I've just been like a lifelong Rush fan, total Rush nerd, drum geek, whatever. And we actually just got finished doing Bubba Bash last weekend with like a whole host of really, really cool guest performers and all that. And yeah, that was just outside of Philadelphia. And yeah, it's like a sold out gig, 1,500 people, I think. And we raised, just because last year I know we did well over $100,000 in donations to Cedar Sinai in Neil's name for cancer research, which is just mind blowing. And I
Awesome.
think
Awesome.
we're at least there again for this year. I don't know the official count yet, but like it's spectacular. But anyway, yeah, just a great event and just so much love for Neil in the air that night, and just like everybody's like backstage, just like telling stories and just like hanging out, and it's just such a good vibe, and just everybody was so supportive. And yeah, and in fact, I'm wearing my Bubba Bash T-shirt, so
Oh,
Nice.
very nice.
I think you can get these on the Why Not website, and the money goes to Cedar Sinai still for any of the T-shirts sold in the future. So, but anyway, yeah. So I'm Mike. I'm from Why Not, and yeah, happy to be here, you guys.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it's great to
Awesome.
have both of you guys here, and great to have all of you other guys who I've recognized and talked to before. All right, so let's go ahead and start with our topic. So we're each gonna say 3 drum fills or beats or grooves or whatever we would like to that Neil's play that kind of moves you in some way. So Tim, why don't we go ahead and start with you, and we'll just kind of go around our little circle here.
All right. Well, like I said, man, I learned every song on every album, and it's really hard to pick a favorite. But what comes to mind is definitely Cygnus X1. On what is it? Part 1, I think.
Yeah,
Farewell to Kings.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it just, not only the way they come in, it is just incredible. And the way they move into the different parts, every groove in that, when they at the ending, it's just going, down to super fast, and it's this is, oh man,
Oh yeah.
that's a heavy tune. We love to do that as a band. We've always done it. Down, down, da, da, da. We've always done that, but we could never get past that part. We never took the time to learn it, you know, and throughout the whole Primus career. And even when I auditioned, we jammed on that riff. Down, down, da, da,
You're
da.
kidding.
Yeah,
That's
I
awesome.
mean, we just when I auditioned with Les and the original guitar player, you know, that the thing we had in common was Rush. So we were kind of, you know, Les knew some bass riffs and I knew the drum parts. So we just kind of had like 30-second spurts of just, you know, little Rush things that we were into. So I would say Cygnus is a really badass, just badass music.
Awesome.
And I gotta say, the most probably whenever I sit at the drums, it's this wants to come out all the time. It's the intro to Digital Man.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
it's always there. And then Larry's always looking and laughing at me when whenever we do sound check, you know, I'll sit down there and I just and it just comes out, you know, every time. So that's got to be one of the most amazing intros for sure. And the way he plays that groove.
Oh yeah.
Okay, you know, I'll tell you right now, this is going to turn into not just 3, but this is going to be like a Neil Peart intros and song podcast. Okay, so I'm going to go through all kinds of them, but yeah, that, geez, when right out of that part when he goes into the right left on the hat and then keeping the backbeat, but still all the accents are all falling on the right left. He never stops that. It's just so clever, you know, so clever. And gosh, for a third, let me do something a little bit different. I was listening to Moving Pictures actually like 2 weeks ago, cranking it in my car, and I was remembering, now that I know more about recording as an older adult, I was listening to Witch Hunt. And the way he builds the pattern so that it slowly escalates into it, where Geddy finishes the verses. It's so smart because it's, you know, he slowly integrates a little more as it goes, letting you know there's something else coming. Oh, is it coming? Here it comes. There's more coming. And I think a lot of drummers need to learn this. And this is the stuff that I'm talking about in my courses that I'm just putting together, is knowing when you're playing these patterns, like what is the feeling that they're giving to people when you play a groove, like what does it mean to someone who's listening? But yeah, if you're sitting in your bedroom, maybe you're not thinking about it, okay, and you're just playing for fun, that's awesome. But I really, when you listen to Neil, he is the master at telling you and building the tension and telling you where it's going to go. And then when the hits come, you know, he's like, he set it up. So when that big next part comes in, it's just perfect. You know, it's like a big crescendo in classical music, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, that's what he could do. And not only, and it's not only about, you know, oh, these licks, check out this cool lick. You know, there are moments like that, but I think you really gotta look further at what he's doing when he's playing stuff. You got to look further into what was coming next in the music, because what he just did before that is maybe unconsciously, I don't know if he's thinking too much about it, but there's a certain unconsciousness that being a great drummer, he has that ability to just express it without thinking about it. And so when you guys listen to Rush, think about this. Think about what he's doing. Think about when it moves into the next part of the music. Why did that happen right there? Why was it that part? Just for fun. Just maybe kind of observe it more and think, well, why didn't he just do all the way around the toms there? You know? Because there was a purpose. It was probably more expressive and brought in that next part in the song way more effectively and powerfully, you know? So I think that's how when I listen to Rush, that's how I've now in my later years, I've kind of understood now that when a drummer's doing that, and Alex is making fun of me, but instead of the fills, you know, they are transitions. He's setting you up for the next part in the song. And that's what we do as drummers. We set up the next parts, or literally the other parts that the other musicians are doing is just repeating. It's just going round and round. It's up to the drums to make it change, because you will lose listeners if it's just everyone's doing one thing the whole time. So the drums are what makes it more interesting. And it really, really kind of signals and it lets you know that this is the feeling now. This is the feeling you should feel now. And now we're in here. This is what you should feel. It's driving, or it's real spacious, or it's really, you know, just to make you move your body, just to, you know, that's what we're doing when we're playing. We're telling people, like, this is what you need to feel right now. All the other instruments, they have melody. They can do it with minors or majors or, you know, weird, I don't know what they're called, but, you know, but for us, we have to do it through the amount of notes you use or the amount of notes you don't use. We have to make every song feel the right way, and you got to know what transitions or fills kind of say that.
Yeah.
So, you
That's
know,
awesome.
so
Awesome.
that's how I listen to Rush. And I've always felt it, and it's probably taken 40 years to try to put it into words and understand that. And now when I listen to the radio, I listen to any music, I'm thinking about it like, why did that drummer play that right there? Why did he do that? And then you listen to the part that what it went into, how it's coming out, you know. And I think a lot of drummers, they're just naturally have that ability because we're not thinking about it so much.
Right.
But yeah, I totally approach it like that now. So with Neil's playing, yeah, what did I say? Oh, hey, I think I said Cygnus. Oh yeah, Cygnus, Digital Man, and Witch Hunt.
Yep.
So
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Those are my three for right now.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Those are great. Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Mike, what do you which ones you got?
Yeah, man. So yeah, I was thinking about this afternoon, and again, just there's so many cool little parts and grooves and whatever. But yeah, I did come up with three that kind of have spoken to me like lately. And yeah, one of the pleasures of being in a band like Why Not is we get to perform a lot of these songs just like all the time, and we get to experience them in a live capacity. I mean, kind of like what Tim has been doing with Primus with playing the whole Hemispheres thing, which is killer. But or Farewell with the Kings, I'm sorry. But so anyway, so we always are adding some new stuff and new material and and I get to really dive into a lot of tracks and really, really explore what Neil was doing. And one of those songs that we just actually learned for Bubba Bash was Distant Early Warning. And like I always thought that was a cool tune, but I never really sat down and figured it out. And there's this one section that I completely love, which is right before the last chorus comes in, where there's like an organ thing. It's like the da da bum 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 bum, and then it's in seven, and there's like a bunch of cool fills over it. I just love the way Neil builds that section because it happens a few times throughout the song, but that final time, it's just like, like all bets are off. It's just, he's like just going nuts. And he starts off with like this really cool flammy thing, and then he adds this extra little juice to it, and then he's like doing this thing, and then he ends up going to the China, and he goes like double time in the seven, and it's just such a cool way to propel into that final chorus. Kind of like what Tim was saying, you kind of have to look at what the next section is. And just the way that he was able to build that like 8-bar section or whatever, and then transition into that chorus, like just so beautifully composed, So that's my number 3. And
All right.
and then number 2, I gotta go Vitor, like the solo breaks in Vitor. I mean, like it's such a hoot. Listen to such a hoot to play. I mean, it's just like, when I'm playing that one, it's like that's one of my favorite moments of any show when we get to that spot. It's like, all right, cool. Like it's time to turn out Vitor. And just again, like so many little nuances of just Neil-isms within that it's like if you wanted to figure out how to play and sound like Neil in like a drum fill capacity, like transcribe something like that section in Vitor, and just figure out exactly what he's doing. And like that's just going to really add to your vocabulary of like the Neil-isms for sure, because it's like just so much of that is just all of the stuff he does. So Vitor, absolutely love that. I mean, that whole piece is amazing. But just, I mean, the section I'm talking about, like with like, big drum breaks at the end. And then my number 1, I think, and this has probably been my number 1 for quite a while, but has to be the big drum fill in the middle of Natural Science. Yes, it has to be like the
yes,
like, it's so good because I mean it's the band stops and it's like, okay, cool, time for the drummer to play, which is always a fun moment in any song, in my opinion. But I mean, it's such a cool fill because it combines it starts off with the 16th note phrasing, and then it goes into the triplet phrasing. And anytime when you're blending those two things together, I mean, it makes for such a dramatic fill. And it again really just makes you stop and stare or listen harder or something. You don't expect it to happen, and it's I wouldn't say it's like jarring, but it's definitely unexpected, and it catches your ear in a way that's just like, ooh, like what was that? That was incredible. So Natural Science, that's my number 1. So
that's awesome.
So recap, we got Distant Early Warning going into the last chorus, and Vitor, the drum solo breaks, and the middle fill in Natural Science.
Those are awesome. Those are all fantastic too. Wow, cool. All right, awesome. Alex.
Well, I have to say first that I'm very glad that I put 5 or 6 songs on my list, because Mike and Tim stole 2 of my favorites. Tim stole Witch Hunt and Mike stole Vitor. So if you, Ryder and Tal, if you need to start writing like 5 or 6 more songs on your list, because we're all going to steal all of your things. So number 3 for me is Jacob's Ladder. Right in the middle, when they do the build-up, when it goes into that long instrumental section, when Alex starts the arpeggios, the dun 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 dun, that part, the way Neil plays that is amazing, because he feels like he swaps time a couple times, going from actual like double time back to the actual time, and it does a really cool circular pattern. Like that part of Jacob's Ladder just blows my mind. And what is even really funnier, in 2015, the last tour, when Rush was playing that song, in that tour they switched out Natural Science and Jacob's Ladder in the set list a few times, and they actually got Alex and Geddy got off of what Neil was playing during that part right towards the end, and then they miraculously like locked back in together. So they were off for about 2 or 3 measures, and then they got back in together. It was absolutely hilarious. Both me and my friend Shane looked at each other and went, "Did you hear that?" It was hilarious. Number 2 for me is the quiet little instrumental part in La Villa Strangiato, where Neil is playing that really simple beat that actually reminds my name is Mud actually reminded me of that part. When I first heard My Name is Mud, I was like, wow, that sounds like La Villa Strangiato. Because the beats are similar, obviously not exactly the same, but that was the very first Neil Peart drum part that I could actually play. Like I actually could really learn how to play that section all the way through really well, like really like nail it. So it has kind of a really special place in my heart. And number 1 for me actually is Xanadu, because fortunately I got to see that song played 4 or 5 times by Neil, and then I got to see Tim play it 3 times. And it's just phenomenal. Tim hit on it perfectly. Like the beginning of Xanadu really starts building until Neil does that like 8 measure long fill at the very end of the phrase before they stop and go into the first verse. Like that fill is just kind of all over the place. He stays right on the beat. And it just fits the song perfectly. It wraps that phrase up perfectly, and then it stops, and then there's something happening, right? Okay, what are we transitioning to next? And obviously in that song they transition into the first verse, which is just mind-blowing. So recap, Jacob's Ladder, La Villa Strangiato, and Xanadu.
Awesome.
Can I tell you that groove in La Villa Strangiato is the most amazing moment, because it's one of the, so he does a similar thing on what song is it? On Farewell to Kings. There's a moment in one of the songs. It's a similar groove. And I think he first did it on Farewell to Kings, because when he's doing La Villa Strangiato, that's on a later album.
Yeah, right after.
But right, yeah.
Yep.
So there you can definitely see his tendency on how to approach things. He did a similar groove in a similar feel, and then does it again in La Vida Strangiato, a similar feel, but it's so cool because it's all linear. No hand or foot, or foot hit at the same time.
Yeah.
So why would he do that? Why would it be so? That's the part that's interesting, and I think it's because of the scarcity of, you can, by doing it linear, you only have one thing saying something at a time. You have the it's like, so it's minimized so much without losing the feel. And that's why I think I think that linear groove came out,
Yeah.
And I've never heard anyone do that. And that really influenced me a lot, for sure. I play linear so much, and it's probably because of that groove. So thanks for bringing that up, Alex.
Yeah.
That's a freaking amazing moment with those.
It is.
And when they do it live, all the lasers shoot out across the room, and the fog's going, and it's just this space.
Magical. So magical.
And the way he builds it, the way he builds from that groove into a little bit busier, just steps it up a little bit, starts raising the hi-hat, opening the hi-hat.
Yeah.
Yeah. God, he's so clever. He's so great. So great at building the mood,
He is.
Yeah. He's so amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah. All right, Paul, it is your 3 now.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
I had a list of about 12 because I figured that this is going to happen. Someone's going to pick my picks, and I'll be.
You guys have tiny lists. Go ahead.
We do? Yeah. So my number 3 is the and I think this was brought up on the Rush fans post on the weekend, that end part for Lock and Key. He does about a 15-second like drum fill.
Yep.
Just kind of, it's just so cool. Every time I hear it, I crank it up in the car or whatever, and I love to just, and like Tim, you're listening, you're trying to figure out what is he doing, trying to visualize what his hands are doing, and it's just blows my mind every time. Number 2 for me, which I'm surprised no one's brought it up yet, was the opening to One Little Victory. That hard driving double bass.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, Geddy's always said this is one of his favorites because it's like that first song back after thinking the band was done after Neil's tragedies, and you know that it's like that victory, you're back, and it's just, he just comes back and just blows your mind with that intro, and every time I just and
Paul, I've got to tell you really quick, if you would have told me 2 or 3 years before Vapor Trails came out that Neil would open a song with a double bass intro like that, I would have said like, oh, you're freaking crazy. No way. He'll never do that.
I think that's why it just catches your attention because you don't expect it.
Yeah.
And but I was thinking about it all day. I was like, and it just dawned on me about a half hour before the show. My number 1 is those 2 drum fills in the camera eye.
Oh. Oh yeah.
It's just, every time I hear that song and I hear the and I'm counting it in my head going, okay, I'm going to air drum this. I'm going to air drum the crap out of this right on time. And I do it every single time. And I just, those fills have always just caught my attention. I love it. So
yeah, that's awesome. Yep. Cool. Yeah, those are great. Those are all great.
I'll have other honorable mentions if no one brings them up. We'll see what happens.
Right? Yeah. All right. So for mine, I actually wrote down 18 to choose from. So I have picked 3, and oddly, nobody's picked them yet. And these are my original
Jim,
3 I picked.
Do you play drums? Jim, do you play drums?
yeah, just a little, right?
Yeah.
All right, so my first one, and I guess they're in order of my preference, I assume, and they're actually in chronological order of the catalog. So my first is Lakeside Park. So at around 2:20, it's coming out of the second chorus before they go to the instrumental break. He plays a drum fill that's kind of similar to the first one, but coming out of that first chorus, but it gets a little bit more sparse, and it kind of feels like it slows. I mean, he doesn't slow down the tempo, but the mood is it feels like it slows down, and then they hit that quiet mellow section. And you know, Tim, you talked about those transitions, and right, and it's like he's keying that up, and you could really, to me, you could really hear the mood of that fill, you know, going into that section, and it just blends and makes perfect sense. And I've always loved that. I love Caress of Steel. It's one of my favorite Rush albums anyway. So so that is my first one. My second one, again, talking about transitions, and it's in a very, very simple fill. And I didn't, it's at 5:57. So I did put the timestamp on there. So it's before the instrumental interlude. And I think in the sheet music I was looking at, it was probably written in 3/8 or something. But there's a flam on the snare and then 4 notes on the toms. Blah, da, 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 da. So that's what he's doing. Blah, da, 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 da. And then they go into that other break where he's playing the offbeat, the upbeats on the bill of the bride cymbal.
Which song are you playing?
Camera Eye.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, that's Camera Eye. And again, that is just a fill that is, it's not overly complex. It's not technically hard to play, but it is positioned perfectly. It's so great. It's just so beautiful there. And my third one is Driven. And it's kind of the whole dang song. So I'm a huge fan of Test for Echo, and I could really tell, Neil really brought something different after he had studied with Freddie Gruber, and to me, that's all over this album, and it is all over this song. The way he's navigating the time signatures, going 3/8 to 5/8 6/8, then 3/8 5/8 7/8, and playing different things, and also, and I think somebody mentioned it, and then Tim, you talked about it too, about how Neil is building up his drum part. So he's kind of starting, a little bit quieter, a little bit more simple, and it's getting more and more complex. And he did that with his different fills that he played throughout Driven. And I didn't even know part of what he played until I watched the A Work in Progress DVD. I was like, oh, he's actually doing that on a hi-hat. It's not just eighth notes on a hi-hat. He's actually playing some roughs on the hi-hat too. so so those are my three. Lakeside Park, Camera Eye, and Driven.
Awesome, Jim.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks. All right, Ryder, what you got, man?
All right. We've had a lot of amazing insight from some really great drummers. Let's see what a bass player has to think about this.
Come to the dark side, Ryder. Come to the dark side.
Welcome.
Oh, man, the other side. Yeah, the other side of the rhythm section. All right. So I obviously there's so many songs you could pick from, right? So I kind of wanted to go for songs that I feel have kind of just been like on my radar recently, and fills that when I immediately think of Neil Peart, or not even just fills, I have some grooves in here too, but just parts of when I think of Neil, all of his different aspects as a drummer, these are some songs that immediately come to mind. One song we've talked about already a little bit is Lock and Key. There's already so many amazing parts in this song, but my favorite part of his in this song is his drum part in the second verse. This is in this part of the song, it's a super, super dense arrangement full of all these different keyboard stabs. Geddy actually busts out his bass here at this part, and he's playing this crazy line all over the place. And it's honestly at first a little hard to tell what Neil's doing here, but he has all these amazing sporadic fills all across his electronic and acoustic percussion, all backed by this super solid kick pulse. And it's so amazing despite the just this clutter of keyboard stabs and bass wizardry going on. There's all these different things happening in this part. Neil is able to not only build upon these crazier, more out there sections that are starting to emerge in the music, but still able to hold this groove down super well and transition out of it with a super clean fill right into the pre-chorus. Yep. Right after that, my second one that I have, this is one that I've played this song a crap ton with my band. The Spirit of Radio is a song we started going through a lot and had a lot of issues getting through because of this next drum fill right here. The big drum fill that serves as a transition going right into the big bridge that's like kind of right before the reggae section. So kind of a revisit of the intro fill, I guess, a reprise of that. Yeah. I have to commend any drummer that can play this fill accurately. And I have to give major props to my drummer too, because holy crap, this is an amazing, super crazy fill that honestly, I don't even know how it makes musical sense. But it's just such an just commanding, as you just hear him just screaming down the rototoms. It's just such an amazing, amazing fill. And they're able to bring it in once again so brilliantly into this next groove, which just is totally different from what came before it. Just a crazy, crazy transition for some two very different parts. So then finally, what I have for my number one, this has kind of just been my personal favorite Neil drum groove kind of all time. Whenever I think about Neil grooves and just kind of what jumps to mind and what immediately when I sit behind a kit whenever my drummer lets me, what I'll kind of jump to. And my favorite is the drum fill and the preceding drum groove that comes after the, I guess, first chorus section in the Camera Eye. So what transitions out from the last lyric is the focus is sharp in the city, and then bam, just that transition immediately, just right off the bat, super, super tight.
Yeah.
Yep. And that drum groove right after, it's just on the record, it's super clean, super simple. And it might not seem like a great pick for a number one, not very flashy, but I just have to
Hey,
commend it doesn't have to be flashy, and
no,
I think the reason it holds the number one for me is just it's so tight, so effective in bringing back from the chaos of like the section that we just experienced, sort of bringing back the themes of the start of the song, which is a much more atmospheric, just a much more atmospheric section. Trying to bring that back is a super, super daunting task, especially with what came before it. And I think Neil using the super, super restricted drum group, not necessarily super restricted, he's still doing a lot of really great stuff on the ride, and he has these amazing
yeah,
accents with the hi-hats. But I think him choosing to do something here instead of something a little bit more bombastic like we had seen earlier and what we'll come to see later in the song, really speaks to just like putting the song forward. And all of his little
yeah,
flourishes that he has, the little hits on the hi-hat and just like quick little things on the snare, it all feels super contemporary to me.
yeah,
While like these little like flams feel like, even though they function as really great in the context of the song, I feel like they even kind of touch on a lot of rhythmic ideas that you kind of see in like dance songs and like hip hop tunes. It has this really bouncy
yeah,
feel, and that's what I love
yeah.
too about this is that even within a more restricted kind of context, there's still so much movement in here. There's so much to unpack just in a simple little.
Yeah.
It's so amazing.
Oh
So
yeah.
for my three, once again, the second verse in Lock and Key, the big transition fill in The Spirit of Radio, and the camera eye after the first
Cool.
chorus.
Yeah. All right. Well, so far only one's been mentioned twice. That was camera I one was mentioned twice. That was it. This we're all getting unique ones, which is great.
Yeah.
All right. Those are totally awesome, Ryder. Those are so great. All right, Tal, what do you have?
All right, so I've learned quite a few Rush songs on drums. I have a YouTube channel that's mostly a tribute to Neil. I probably haven't learned as many as Tim or Mike, but I still have quite a few in my repertoire. So I've done a lot of these fills and grooves myself, and really, I'm a perfectionist. Just I try to be like Neil was, where I try to listen to the parts by ear, and then anything I film for YouTube, I want it to sound exactly like Neil played it. Do I always succeed? I don't know. That's for you guys to tell me. But my three actually have luckily not been mentioned yet. I was gonna say Lock and Key then, but then I had to think on my feet to replace that one. And I actually went with a song that kind of has a similar sort of structure where it's like getting Alex playing rhythm and Neil going off crazy and soloing. And it's actually the opening to Face Up on Roll the Bones.
Mm.
Yep. We're getting Alex playing some arpeggios in A minor, and Neil is just going wild on his Ludwigs. Boom, boom, and it's a killer way to start the song. Probably it's the fastest paced song on Roll the Bones about taking chances, and they took a chance with that one, starting with that might be Neil's busiest intro, and it's just so much fun to play. It really gets me hooked. Face Up is a song that doesn't get talked about that much in Rush's repertoire, but whenever I listen to it, like it may not be their like technically flashiest or anything like that, or most poignant emotional, but I always have a great time listening to that song and a great time playing that intro with those triplets all the way on the 6-inch concert. Actually, it's not a concert tom, the 6-inch closed tom on those Ludwigs. They just sounded so killer. I really wish they
Yep.
played that live.
Yeah.
I think his Ludwigs were the best sounding drums in his
Me too.
entire. I mean, I'm partial to the Slingerlands of the late '70s, but I think the Ludwigs sounded the best, like
Me
hands
too.
down.
Yeah, I agree. And I own a DW kit, and I still agree with that. There was just something about those, yeah. And then my second choice comes from my favorite Rush song, Marathon. It is Neil's work during Alex's solo, also in the bass break in the beginning, that part in 7/8, and especially when Alex kicks in with the solo. It's nothing so technically wild, but especially if you only listen to it a few times, it usually takes a few listens to kind of get that hi-hat timing properly. Da, 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 da. And it really complements Alex's incredible guitar solo on that song. super well, even though you don't. It's like not a traditional drum groove, really. Like Neil easily could have just done a 4 on the floor or just something basic with the hi-hat and ride. But no, he chose to sort of make it all funky and rhythmic, including, these accents in places you wouldn't expect. And like Tim said, there is a reason for everything. And I feel like I just love how in sync they were as a band, where like they could take the kind of most unusual things, but make it sound kind of perfect together, even if on the surface it's a little bit dissonant. So I always really enjoy playing that part. And then even the fill just leading up to it, it's not that technical, but it really gets me hyped up. On the snare there. So yeah, I absolutely love that. That'll be my second choice. And then my number one at the moment is actually the ending groove, like in the final chorus of Bravado, where it's the ride and hi-hat with the 2 floor toms right underneath his hands.
Yeah.
So actually, Jim and Ryder talked about the camera eye, which has a very similar groove, and I love how he revisited it in this part of Bravado, and also to serve as the climax of the song. And Bravado is pretty repetitive in nature. It's like lyrics-wise, we heard those words a few times. We will pay the price, we will not count the cost, and if love remains. But I just love his choice of groove for that. Yeah, it really seems to accent Getty's emotion during those lyrics. And I love the double track vocals. One of them, everything is lost. And then by the end, it takes some limb dependence at first, but then once you kind of understand how he's doing it, always the bell hit on the end, and then those hi-hats on like every other 16th note or whatever it is. And then finishing off with a killer fill. It's the ending of the song. It's one of my favorite Rush songs, Bravado. And that was just an absolutely killer way to end it. I couldn't have asked for like something more unique and fun than that. And I love playing it for that very reason. So that would be my 3 too.
Awesome.
Yeah. Getty said a few times that Bravado is one of their favorite songs to play. Like, he said it multiple times. He said it a few weeks ago at his book thing that I went to in Seattle. Like, Bravado is one of the band's favorite songs.
Yeah, that makes sense considering they played it on Willowbone's Counterparts.
It's
5 tours. They played on 5
multiple
tours.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So yeah, to sum up, I guess my third place would be Face Up, second place Marathon, and first place Bravado. As of right now.
Awesome.
Tomorrow I could say something different.
Of course. I think we're all that way. All right, those are so great. Such great choices. All right, Liam, you are
Woo! Lucky lost, but
we're finally came to you, man. All right, so what you got?
All right, well, we're gonna do another Caress of Steel, and I think it's underrated play here. Bastille Day, the intro that just builds up. Like I said, emotion building up, and I think with the historical accuracy of Bastille Day and the French Revolution makes sense. Neil loves his history, so that's my number 3 there. Number 2, Mystic Rhythms from Power Windows ending out the album. The intro of it in particular, I think it just builds up with that tribal feeling and just the mysteries that we're unveiling in the song there. And number 1 is the paradiddle in Scars, which also remind me a bit of Mark Brzezicki's work from Big Country on Bullshit's Car.
Wow.
Oh,
that's a really strong connection, Liam.
Dude, Mark is my hero.
That's a drummer who does not get enough talked about. Mark is fantastic.
Doubt. Mark Brzezicki,
yeah. Have you guys ever heard one of the you've got Phil Collins in the air tonight.
Right.
I'll tell you what there's one that blows that one to pieces.
Oh, tell me.
Mark, Big Country released an EP, 4 songs.
Wonderland.
On vinyl, Wonderland, the first song called All Fall Together.
Yes.
The drums on that. It's a monstrous minute or 2 minutes of just drums. And they are thunderous beyond what Phil Collins did. And it's all in 3/4. It's all in 3/4, and Mark flips the downbeat every 8 bars.
Oh wow!
It's like
He's
no
a
one
freaking
has ever
genius.
heard
Wow.
this. It's incredible.
Wow.
Incredible.
But then there's the
So
yeah.
you know, and
Yes.
it's pretty amazing how, and I know this is about Neil, and here we are, like
Yeah.
talking great stuff about Mark Brzezicki, but you know, and for all you other non-drummers out there, you know, give a few drummers any time to talk about one drummer, and all of a sudden we're gonna tie them to 10 other drummers because of influences and styles and things.
Yeah.
This is normal drum conversation.
It is.
No, man,
Good job, Liam.
Mark is one of my hugest influences, and I
Sam,
probably don't
so good.
mention it enough.
So
But
good.
he
so many
is,
good
man.
moments.
Listen to
Yeah.
Big
Pretty good.
Country. He's another
check
one
Big
that
Country
knows
out, man.
Yes. How to build and signify or signal and transition, all of that. He is a master, man. And he's a master at layering. They do a lot of overdubs, creative overdubs that make the rhythm sound just beyond. And you listen to the production, the drums are like what they focused on. It's incredible.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, they're excellent. Yeah, so for you guys out there who are listening, if you're not really familiar with Big Country, check them out. Seriously, check them out. They're on Spotify. You can go there, or you can buy their records. Is even a better idea. Buy the vinyl, buy the CD.
First 3 albums.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to go get the vinyls.
Dude, you guys gotta get Wonderland.
Yes,
download
I have
Wonderland.
to find that.
I
got
put
two
it on
copies
right
Literally
now.
just did it as we were talking.
Dude, did you hear All Fall Together? The very
Not
first
yet.
song.
I gotta check it out now.
Oh my God, you're gonna.
That'll be the first thing I do right after I get off this.
Turn it up, and you're gonna go, why hasn't the world heard this?
Wow.
This is
good job, Liam.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, Liam.
And you know what's crazy?
Find it. Hang on a minute.
Here's the other.
I got it.
Here's the other crazy part. When Primus got first signed, oh yeah, there's the album. Nice, dude.
Good job, Liam.
Yeah.
I searched for years to find that in record stores before the internet. And finally I found it, and I was like, oh my God, this is like finding gold. But when Primus first signed to Interscope Records, Jimmy Iovine, it was one of the head guys there. He was talking about us. We were in a meeting, and he's talking about the recording, and he's telling us like, oh, you know, we'll do it this way, we'll do it that way, we'll make you guys, you know, we'll record you this way. Because he worked with U2, he worked with Big Country, he worked with all these guys. And like a complete fool, I knew nothing about him. And then later I realized he's the one that made that sound on Wonderland. Jimmy Iovine is the producer that makes that sound that you're about to, all you guys who are listening out there, you're about to hear this.
Yeah.
I could have had my drums sounding like that. But Primus, we're more of a DIY band, so we did it ourselves. And I'm like, oh my God, I wish we had let Jimmy produce the records.
Crazy.
I'll tell you this much, Tim. Your cover of Making Plans for Nigel Ecstasy is phenomenal.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. We always used to. I remember hearing that people in Europe were all pissed off about it because, you know, we play it way faster and the production doesn't sound as great as their records. It was a tribute, you know. It was like, hey, these are our heroes, XTC, Peter Gabriel, and you know, we just wanted to pay homage to them. So that, you know,
and you know, I think it's so great, you know, paying homage like you guys did that, and Primus is doing with you guys did with the Farewell to Kings tour, and Mike, how you and Why Not do, and you know, do with the Bubba Bash, and even us just chatting here of like, you know, thinking about Neil and paying homage to him. So, you know, I think you know, if we let this go, the drummers will probably stay around and talk for another 4 or 5 hours. But I think we're going to tell the audience goodbye, and thank you very much.
All right.
for listening and watching us. And I hope you enjoyed our conversation. And I hope our little transition to some other bands of drummers kind of sparked some interest for some people as well. But thank you guys for sharing all of your everything you have on the drum parts for Neil and what you love, what he did. I think it was a super fun conversation. It was for me for sure. So
this was awesome.
Yeah, so for you guys listening, go ahead and hit the like button, hit subscribe. You'll get notified of the videos that we drop. It happens, I think, once a week. We put something out there for sure, and we'll be seeing you guys soon. Take it easy.
Woo!